Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to episode 12 of Vegan World 2026, the moonshot of our generation. And this episode is about healing our indigenous communities of the world. And we know that, to heal the world, we have to first heal human beings. If we have really sick human beings all around, they're not going to help you heal the world. So ultimately, we have to start with ourselves. We have to heal ourselves, and then we can focus on healing the planet. And to heal ourselves, we need to start with those who have been abused the most. And the indigenous communities have been systematically given bad foods. Literally, their sickness rates are through the roof. And this is not something that's tolerable. And we need to figure out how to address it. And I have two guests today, Doreet and Vincent Schilling, and they are going to help us understand the situation in indigenous communities and how we can go about healing them. And of course, we have to heal ourselves too. Diseases are everywhere. I say that in America, the wealthiest country in the world, 97% of the people are not getting enough fiber. 98% of the people are not getting enough potassium. 94% are not getting enough vitamin D. 89% are not getting enough vitamin E, and so on down the line. Even calcium, for heaven's sake. We eat so much cheese, and yet 44% of the people in America don't get enough calcium in their diets because it's not bioavailable in cheese. So we have this huge public health crisis that's been building up over centuries. And so I'm so happy to welcome Doreet. Doreet, tell us about the work that you've been doing and how we can address some of our diseases and our sicknesses.
Well, one of the problems, I think, is that we have a mainstream media, that pushes the things that have been manufactured in labs and have nothing to do with nature, do not come from nature, do not even address us as part of nature, and just see us as consumers. And we all end up conforming because this is a mass hypnosis that goes on when people watch mainstream media, that they actually think that this is truth, and they don't realize it's all advertising. And advertising is done simply for the name of profit. It has nothing to do with our own well-being. In fact, it is divorced from our own well-being, as we are divorced from the power that the powerful beings that we really are within. It disempowers us. It gives us a feeling of everything is okay and you're not okay. But if you take this, do this, buy this, then you will feel better, whatever that means. So the first thing we need to do is to actually divorce ourselves, I think, from the institutions which do not serve us. And one of the main institutions is the advertising company, of which mainstream media, to me, is the propagator. And so we need to start looking at the ancient traditions of the world. The ancient traditions of the world all believe in one thing, that we are part of nature, we come from nature, we are nature, and we are responsible for nature. We're here as stewards of nature. If we're stewards of nature, then it means we have to take care of our own bodies, our mind, or thoughts, or thought patterns. How can we serve the earth if we are, in fact, destroying ourselves? Every time that somebody is talking about the environment, I wonder, are they talking about the inner environment or the outer environment? I think we need to make a distinction. Whether we're speaking about the outer environment, which only manifests and mirrors what's going on internally within our own inner environment. In order to heal the outer environment, we have to heal the inner environment first. The first thing I think is that we need to completely and totally detox and cleanse ourselves from any mass advertising and mainstream media.
Thank you. Music to my ears. I can tell you that. Now, let me ask you, Vincent. I think what has happened to the indigenous communities of the world is a tragedy. In this system, which is literally factory farming all of us for profit, right? The indigenous communities have been the worst hit, so to speak. And this is why I think focusing on how to get the indigenous communities healthy. If we can get them healthy, I think we'll get all of us healthy.
Yes.
To me, that is the core issue. So I know you've been looking into this for a long time, and actually tell us a bit of your background.
Well, I am a journalist for Indian Country Today. It's the largest Native news network in the United States. Associate editor. I have a radio show, Native Trailblazers, we've been doing for about 10 years, although I have taken a little bit of a hiatus the past couple months because of my father. His health is declining in his older years, and we've been kind of taking care of him. And in addition to journalism, radio, I also am a producer with Schilling Media, my media and media relations company. And Schilling Media does projects for the benefit of Indian Country and other companies, and our influence is on the impact of Native communities and consulting in terms of telling the correct stories about Native people, et cetera, et cetera. And I've been someone who, in my mind, has advocated for the correct stories to be told about Native people. And there's a hunger for this, real history to be told, because I started a TikTok, just Vince Schilling, my name, and started telling some snippets of real history, because the videos are about a minute long. And in less than a month, well, maybe about a month, I went from 300 to 10,000 followers. People are hungry for this information about the real history. And I'm sharing a lot of things about, of course, Native history and how it's been neglected. And people are being incredibly supportive and saying, thank you for telling this. I never knew this, et cetera, and which will bring us to the question that you kind of introduced in terms of, the health of our Native and Indigenous communities. And in a lot of ways, well, in every way, it began with the displacement and cultural genocide of Native people and the Indian removal and disbursement and forcible removal and relocation of Native people. And Andrew Jackson incited the Indian removal and the Cherokee Trail of Tears, in which, countless, Native people were literally forced from their homes at gunpoint and everything else, and forced to walk in the winter, across, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles into the areas that the U.S. considered no longer a threat to their existence. So, you have highly agricultural, homebound Native folks, living in these prosperous communities, forced out from where they are and put into areas where there are, very low nutrition, levels in the soil, and, very hard to farm lands. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're got the greenest thumb in the world. If you are forcibly moved and then sent to a place that has nothing there, you can be the best farmer in all the world. You're still going to need, 6 to 8 months until you have something growing. Right. So in many situations, Native people were forced to wait for commodities from soldiers that had moved them So we're looking at things like white flour, sugar, lard, and which was the birth of fry bread.
Right.
And but where Native people are now, fry bread has become something very traditional, and it's a long part of many Native traditions for many, many years. But my wife's mother said something very interesting to me, because I'll tell you one thing. I may be a journalist, I may be vegan, I may be a producer, but I'll tell you, one of the first things I am Native and Mohawk, and I will stand up for my fellow Natives and their traditions and culture, etc. And if someone says that fry bread is part of their culture, I'm honoring that. But I will say something about the concerns with fry bread in many ways. Is my wife's mother said something very interesting to me once, and she says, when I first started this, it saved my life.
Right.
But now it's killing me.
Right.
And that was one of the most profoundly insightful things I'd ever heard in my life. And I've still carried that with me. And I've never forgotten that she said that. Mm-hmm. And yes, though fry bread may have saved lives of many people, the nutritional value isn't there. Because white flour has a lot of the, fiber removed, and it's just pure carbohydrate. It's a simple sugar. It just goes straight to your body, and complex carbohydrates, of course, are much more healthy for you. So whole grains and things like that are something. So right. A long way to your question, that's who I am. So I advocate for nutrition as often as I can, while respecting traditions of my fellow Native friends and family, and so that's me. I spoke too long.
Oh no! It's. I mean,
I know, but you asked a very simple question, and I.
No. It is, to me. It is about storytelling, right? So we construct our lives through stories, and then we play games. And this is how we kind of do transactions with each other, by playing games.
Yes. Well, Dr. Rao, you invited the right guest for that.
Right. So I think, to me, it's the kind of games we play, the games. In fact, I'm going to be speaking about that today during the Vegan Day. By the way, Vegan Day, the day that shall not be followed by night, according to Brother Phil Lane. My God. Such an inspiring man, amazing man, who imagined this whole event that we are part of now, and so I'm so grateful to him.
Yeah, I agree. Can we just acknowledge how amazing Doreet's background looked? Well, I'm just got this green thing behind. I was set up for Zoom to have a background, but then I forgot it was this. She's like, let me just stand over here by this museum and take this picture.
Vincent, I have several shows, so I had to convert my kitchen into a broadcast studio, and then my office into also somewhat of a broadcast studio.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, I'm extremely grateful to Dr. Ralph for the cooking show we had over the weekend. My kitchen has never been so clean. I'm like scrubbing with a toothpick, things.
Yeah, if people haven't watched the cooking shows that you both did, I think they should go back and look at Climate Healers videos and watch these two cooking shows. They were incredible.
That's fun.
Doreet made this smoothie bowl. Full of deliciousness.
Yum.
And Vincent made 5 vegan dishes in less than 30 minutes. I think we probably did 6 or 7,
Something like that.
I think you have the record. I think you hold the record now, Vincent.
Well, I thought I'm just doing easy things. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of the way I approached it. So, Dr. Rao, I remember when we spoke a couple days ago, I asked you if I could share the Mohawk Thanksgiving prayer, which
Please.
I have actually.
Yeah.
Great. Now, this is a Iroquois Confederacy tradition, Mohawk, Onondaga, Oneida, Cayuga, Seneca, and Tuscarora. And this is a shortened version. Now, I have to give Doug George Canientio a shout out for this because he's the one who sent this to me, and it's his abridged version. I just want to make sure credit is given to Doug because he abridged this. And so, and here's his words to open what this prayer is. And he is also Akwesasne Mohawk, as am I. The Mohawk people are part of a great Six Nations Iroquois Confederacy, the oldest union of free nations on the earth. Ours are a people who define life as a blessing, and for this we engage in a series of Thanksgiving ceremonies that follow the lunar year for a total of 13. During these communal rituals, we sing, dance, and share the bounties of harvest and the hunt. Prior to each event, we begin when a chosen speaker will recite the Ohantian Gare Watekwen, the words which come before all else, in which we acknowledge elements of creation, which in turn represent all that lives upon this earth into the sky and beyond. And he says, the abridged version here may be used by all those who desire to express their gratitude on Thanksgiving Day or any other special occasion. And, I say this with giving love and honor to the Pequot people who actually were very sadly killed in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And when they found a dead man in a boat, and there was a British major who came out and said, well, it's got to be the Pequot. They went and burned the village down, and William Bradford, the mayor of Plymouth, came out the next day and said, let's celebrate this day of Thanksgiving for the victory we've won, and we'll celebrate it every year. And that's where Thanksgiving came from. A lot of people don't realize that. And here is the abridged version of this, who all desire to express their gratitude. We express our thanks to Mother Earth, who provides us with all we need to live upon her. We express our thanks to all the waters of the world, for we cannot exist without the lifeblood of Mother Earth. We express our thanks to the animals which live within the earth's waters for carrying out their duties in harmony with natural law. We express our thanks to the insect beings which are upon and within the earth. We express our thanks to the animal beings and their leader, the deer, that we are grateful for sustaining us. We express our thanks to the medicine plants, which give us their energy that we may be healed. We express our thanks to the food plants, which nourish our bodies, particularly three sisters, corn, beans, and squash. We express our thanks to the trees of the world and to the maple tree, the leader of all its kind, whose sap renews our spirits and bodies. We express our thanks to the four winds with whom life would not exist. We express our thanks to the thunders of the world who carry the rain and energize the earth for our seeds. We express our thanks to our eldest brother, the sun, who brings heat and light to the world. We express our thanks to the grandmother moon, who gives us light and controls the movement of water on earth. We express our thanks to the stars who give us beauty and direction, and to them we return when our spirits leave this earth. We express our thanks to the spirit beings who guide and protect us. We express our thanks to the messengers and teachers who remind us of our duties upon this earth. We express our thanks to those yet unborn that are still ensured they have clean water, clean air, and fertile soils. We express our thanks to the Creator for blessings of life and the gift with each one of us to each other and the world. The intent is for us to place aside from that which obscures humility and kindness, and from these words will come a commitment to renew our trust relationship with the natural world. So be it our minds.
That is so beautiful. Vincent, I would really appreciate it if you could send me that. And I would like to put it up on our website with gratitude to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And may I put it on my site too, Vincent?
Yes.
Thank you. I was totally mesmerized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is so, it speaks the truth.
Mhm.
That's who we really have to thank. Exactly
Absolutely.
as you said.
Yeah.
So the first Saturday of every month, I have a ritual where in the afternoon I dedicate to giving thanks to Native Americans. And I study something from Native American culture because I believe to give thanks is to know, to become aware.
Mhm.
So the first Saturday of every month, I do that. And this fits beautifully in. And I think for the first Saturday in January, Vincent, I would like to, in my ceremony, use this, if it's okay with you. I hate asking, Native Americans for something that I can use because I feel we've taken so much from them already. It's like, you want this too? What else, do you want? But I know that Vincent,
But we were never asked permission.
yes,
Right.
exactly,
So it's a big difference.
exactly, exactly.
If you whenever you in native culture, if I use something from someone else, I won't practice their traditions because that's theirs.
Mhm.
But Doug says in this prayer that anyone can use it. He says that.
Mhm.
So something that is very respectful in native culture is if someone recites something, etc., and you say, "I'd like to recite that with your blessing," and they say yes, then by all means, go ahead. The most respectful thing to do is when you do that, to say during that moment is to say, the blessing I am going to say is from the Iroquois Confederacy or Mohawk, and I asked them if I could, and they gave me their blessing, because you want to recognize that this is where this came from, and I'm giving them an acknowledgement. That's why land acknowledgements are very important to Native people, is that you say, hey, I recognize that here I am on, here in Virginia, I am on Nottoway, Chickahominy, Nansemond land, originally, or whatever land you're from. So it's respectful to say, hey, I'd love to say this. I think it resonates with me. And I asked a Mohawk person, and they said yes. So, to say that is wonderful. That's okay. It's not like you're taking someone's regalia, wearing it and dancing around,
Right.
It's you are saying, hey, I love that. It really resonates with me. I think it could help my children or my friends. And for the most part, that stuff is very well received.
Yeah. Ultimately, culture, I think, is not static. It keeps evolving. And we are interacting with each other, and we are borrowing from each other, cultures, traditions.
I borrow a
And
lot. I borrow a lot from Ayurveda. A lot.
right, yeah. I mean, Ayurveda, see, all of that, we consider all that, at least in India, that no one owns it. It is given to us. And it is free. This is why, we don't mind people using yoga and Ayurveda. I mean, we do ask that you understand what it really is, and so use it to the best of its ability, right, to heal
And
us.
that's why when I was studying Ayurveda to be an Ayurvedic practitioner, I studied with Dr. Deepak Chopra and Dr. David Simon, because I couldn't see studying with somebody who wasn't from India, and a doctor also in India who practices the Ayurvedic, traditions. I believe you study with the person, not third party as well.
Right. See, one of the first books I read from Gandhi, actually, it was one of the first books he wrote, was Hind Swaraj. He wrote it in 1909, and so there he was pointing out the differences in the way Indian civilization has addressed problems versus how the Western civilization, at that point it was the British who were addressing problems in India. And what he pointed out was that in our culture, we tend to look for the cure for a problem. What is the underlying cause, and how do we remove the underlying cause of that problem? Whereas the British, he said, tend to look for, how do you patch up this symptom that's happening and then continue doing what we're doing, right? So, and he says, ultimately that's not going to sustain us. I mean, at some point you're going to hit a point where you cannot do this anymore. And you have to look for the cure. And I think we have reached that point. We've reached that point on Mother Earth where you cannot continue, changing the climate, destroying the planet, destroying all the animals, killing everything, and then look for some chemical cure, a chemical palliative, so to speak, that would overcome the symptoms that you're facing right now. So we talk about, what is healthy lifespan versus the actual lifespan, right? The healthy lifespan is the lifespan without you having to take constant procedures and diseases, right? And medicines. And there's a gap of about 15 years between a healthy lifespan and the actual lifespan, which means for 15 years, on average, people are just going through pills and procedures to stay alive. That's not living. That's really torture, right? But people are making money on that. And that's the system we have. And so since people are making money on that, they cannot imagine giving that up, So this is why when we advocate for veganism, and basically we are saying that we have polluted the environment so much, right? The way we have been doing things. Like, I think we are pouring 250 billion tons of toxic chemicals into the environment every year. That's 250 billion elephants worth, which means for every human being, that's like 30 elephants worth of chemicals that we are pouring into the environment every year. And that doesn't go away. It doesn't go to Mars. It's working its way up the food chain. So this is why our animal relatives are also very, very sick. And when we eat their bodies, we are going to get even sicker. And that's what's happening to us. And this is why people are, advocating for veganism in order to heal ourselves. There's a whole lifestyle medicine that's coming up now,
And yet I don't think that veganism can heal us unless we go a different route with it.
Absolutely.
So a lot of people are going the regular route. They're just substituting an animal burger for a very toxic, manufactured in the lab meat burger that is just not from the animal. And we're doing a lot of that. We're just simply mirroring exactly what's going on. And that is why I think, because this is about Native Americans, Native Americans lived and prospered and died with the land. Everything they did was about the land. And to me, the quickest and easy, every time a country has been colonized, I've seen something in common. You cannot take over a people and a culture unless you actually poison the people first. You go for the food supply. You take them off the land. You get them as far away from the land as possible. And if you can find a place that's not fertile, then you push them there and then you sequester them in. And so that was what was done to all indigenous populations around the world. I mean, the story of the Maoris, I studied the story of the Maoris a lot. When I was in Australia, the Aboriginal culture, I learned about the dreaming there because I always learn, I prefer to learn from the people themselves. And I was absolutely amazed about the whole story of the dreaming. We'll come back to that. There's always the same everywhere, that they were taken away from the fertile places. And then they were given poison, and it always constitutes sugar. And that's the first addiction. Sugar is our first addiction. And then anything white flour. Those two immediately cause the brain cells to diminish. And in my opinion, we have two brains. We've got a brain of the microbiome, which lives all over us, not just in the gut, and then the brain that's in the skull. And the first thing we do is we destroy the microbiome. But there are solutions for this now. And I'm hoping that we can offer solutions in this show. And my solution is, even if you are a Native American living in the least fertile land possible, and every time something is found there, a mineral like uranium or something amazing, how all of a sudden they have to move them off that's very non-fertile land when they find that there's something there to be had. But you can take your power back. I know
Right.
the land is part of who Native Americans are, but we can also grow things without the land. For example, microgreens. May I introduce you, if you don't know microgreens yet, this is
Hmm.
one of the quickest and easiest ways to take our power back to reverse diabetes. So I want to show you something. You all know what peas look like. And I want to show you the difference between microgreens and sprouts. You can also sprout. Microgreens, these are peas. But when
Hmm.
you grow them as microgreens, and you can grow them in your kitchen, you can grow them in your living room. You have one room, and that's a bedroom, you can grow it in there. If you sprout it, it's a little bit more complicated, but here, the same pea sprouted.
Hmm.
Now
Right.
you can purchase it, but it's super expensive. But if you grow your own, it's pennies a week, not a day, pennies a week. And so now you will have all of this available to you. This one is the broccoli
Wow.
microgreens. And here we have sprouted mixed beans, including mung beans, which are so important for vegans and
Right.
critical. Now, when you sprout something, it is immediately bioavailable to the body. The body recognizes it and it knows exactly what to do with it.
Right.
And so these are things that we can now start using in the vegan community, and specifically in the indigenous vegan communities, or if somebody is just interested in exploring veganism.
Right. That's a great idea, Doreet. I mean, I know my mother used to sprout a lot. She would always take whole mung beans and then soak them in water and drain them and put a wet cloth on top and, and let it sprout. And uh, I am I it reminds me that I need to start doing that more than just sticking it in the instant pot.
Yes,
So thank you for reminding us. And
you
yeah,
will.
so nature is so abundant. Nature is always helping us, to heal.
Nature will grow everywhere. Just all they need is a little love or time and attention. All that sprouts needs are water and a jar, and you have to know exactly what to do. The only difference with sprouts is you better be home and you better be there to take care of it so it
Right.
doesn't get moldy. Microgreens, you don't have to take care of it. You just put it in the soil, and it can be in any kind of container,
Hmm.
and then you put the seeds in. You just have to water it a little bit each day, not even a lot. You don't have to put it in the sun if you don't want to. I prefer to put it in the sun because then it gets the chlorophyll, and of course the
Hmm.
sun is the giver of all life. So I prefer that. And I like to use ocean water. There's a
Hmm.
company in Florida that actually sells ocean water, and the microgreens are so green when you use ocean water. It's pretty dramatic, actually, the difference. So there are things that we can do, and I would love to help if I'm asked to, and if my suggestion is accepted, to start helping Native Americans really become much more food secure, and to begin to take their power back by letting go of all of the stuff that was the only thing that was given them were three things, the white flour, the sugar, and that silly American cheese.
Right.
The three things that destroy us. And this is what was used in all native populations around the world. Those are the three things that we all should be staying away from. And I find that now African Americans are addicted to these two. So it's incredible that every community that seems to be pushed away, those
Hmm.
three things they're pushed away with those things, and it's like, this is what you need and this is what you want, and there you go.
Right. It's a matter of addicting us into behaviors that are not good for us, right? So because then they make money off of our bodies. That's really what the system is all about. You know,
Addiction is
I-
a big profit making industry. It's the biggest profit making industry is addiction. They
right.
sell addiction by using mainstream media and advertisements. We can take our power back. We need to, we have to. I do believe that it's very important that every vegan starts re-examining if
Hmm.
what it is that they're actually doing by recreating the same poison foods.
Right.
For some people, it's helpful because where people are so addicted, they need to see something that looks like a hamburger and tastes like one. I understand that. And so we start with that. But eventually, our goal is to be self sustaining, get back to nature, and eat exactly what the body recognizes immediately. And that will create and clean everything. And the microbiome comes alive and flourishes again. All illnesses begin in the microbiome, including depression and suicides.
Absolutely.
Depression and suicides are taking over every single community, but specifically Indigenous communities around the world, because they realize that their ancestors had the truth. Their ancestors knew what to do, but now they're being told it's not good enough. They're not good. This is what they need to be doing. And they're constantly bombarding with advertisement, billboards, and they turn on the radio and everything. It's just unbelievable. This is why I'm so happy that Vincent has a radio station. Can we tune into Vincent, or is it just for Native Americans?
No, it's called Native Trailblazers. It's on Blog Talk Radio. I do it every week. So there's a lot of things going through my head as we're discussing all of this. And, I think of the communities and my friends and families on reservations or in urban areas. I've traveled quite a bit, met with a lot of folks who are Native. And, my wife, Dolores, and I are vegan, and we also do eat organic. And for myself, for me, I speak from my perspective, my wife, Dolores, and I are in a privileged position.
Right.
We are able to go to the store. I can order groceries to be shipped to me. And that is an incredible place of privilege. If I want to get seeds, I can sprout stuff. In many, 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 many Native communities, that is not an option. Mm-hmm. You have one store that is anywhere from 50 to 100 miles away each way. And sometimes it's like a gas station with a little bit of a food mart. And a can of peas is $8 to $10. A can of asparagus is $20 to $30. And these vegetal offerings are not so readily available. They are extremely, extremely, extremely hard to come by. And that is by design. So how can we get vegetables, seeds, healthy foods to our Native communities? I don't know. In some ways, it's helping to share information of community efforts we can support or help with. But at the same time, we cannot and we have to be extremely cautious of imposing anything on Native communities, because we have several hundred years of things being imposed on us.
Right.
And many times Native people do not want to be told what to do. We don't want visitors. We don't trust people. So imagine, and I'll give you an analogy, is, let's say, okay, some of the folks out there in the vegan community are activists. Some are very strong activists. Some go to the point of like releasing animals from, laboratories, things like this, things like that happen. So imagine, if you will, any of you, that you're sitting at home watching TV and the FBI shows up to your house. FBI vans, guys with the jackets that say FBI, other guys with other jackets say Secret Service, things like that. And they start setting up food containers or like food preparation things, because they want to offer you food, and they say, hey, we got food for you. What are your thoughts going to be?
Right.
What do these guys got up their sleeves? I don't trust you. You got healthy food for me, but what else you going to do? What else you going to offer me? Are you going to take me to jail? Are you going to kill me? Are you going to kill my family? Are you going to kidnap my family? That is how deeply entrenched and fearful or protecting many Native communities are. We do not trust outsiders. We don't want your help, and we don't want you to tell us what to eat, how to live, how to be. So this is an incredibly high wall to climb. But there is a way, in that people who are interested in helping, because what happens now in many Native communities is people who are wanting to convert Native people to Christianity or other religions will go and build a facility right outside the border and then travel in and offer to help people fix their houses, or offer them food, or offer them things that will help them on the condition that they practice their religion or go to church or accept, their religion into their way of life, and et cetera, et cetera. So there are a lot of people already going to reservations offering sustenance on condition and with strings.
Right.
So there's all of this out there. We've got genocide in our history, like literal genocide. Even now, there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And it is horrendously high rates. 1 in 3 Native women face sexual assault in their lifetime. 1 in 3. The percentage rates comparison to Native women compared to non-Native is through the roof. So with all of these amazingly wonderful, beautiful, incredibly profoundly generous suggestions that you have and want to offer and want to give so lovingly and willingly, I just want people to understand that this offering may or may not be received with grace, only because we are a guarded people. Now, I don't speak for everyone, and I always say that. I don't speak for all Native people. And as a vegan who can eat vegan and can eat organic, I recognize that I'm coming from a privileged point of reference. And I don't expect all Native people to suddenly convert because I say, hey, do it. But I do want to say, look, there are some opportunities. And it would be great for Native people to think of doing things like growing microgreens and sprouts. And then I think of many Native families live with many family members in that home. So there's not a whole lot of space. We have right now a couple rooms or this or that where we may be able to put our sprouts and this and that. But when you have, many people living in one house, it's not like, hey, Mom, I'm going to take over your dresser to grow some sprouts. We don't have that room. And so there are just a lot of things to consider, that when we want to bring a gift or an offering or love, that we are approaching people or folks or communities that are rightly guarded. But if your intention really is loving and good, which I know both of yours are loving and good, that we say, how can we approach this? We maybe talk to some leaders or some clan mothers and say, hey, you know what? I have some really amazing ideas in terms of sprouting, and talk to the clan mothers and say, hey, this is something we could bring to our community. Or maybe even the community center can have a place with the sprouts, and we can show the kids how to do this and let it slowly but surely be introduced to the community so the community can bring it together, because Native communities are communities. I mean, in my experience, we are stronger as a group. And when we come together and when we share each other's strengths and weaknesses and they balance each other out. But I can really foreseeably see talking to like Mohawk clan mothers and saying, hey, I have a really cool thing that Doreet shared with me about sprouting things. It's very healthy to supplement salads and things like that. Would you guys be interested? And I would imagine many communities would be like, you know what, that sounds kind of neat. That'd be something to do in our community center or this and that. And maybe some families can give the kids a jar that they could take home and they can grow their own and things like, so little things introducing slowly, I think could be received. But I just wanted to give you some background and give you some thought process so that if you go to Native communities and they're like, no, get out of here, it's nothing personal. They're not like, but I'm just saying that possibility exists. And I don't want someone to throw a bag of seeds in their van and drive out to some reservation and expect people to be like, oh, let's talk about Native issues, because it's not going to happen that way.
Right.
So,
which is exactly why, Vincent, why I think, well, I've never done it before, because I used to live in Canada and I used to watch the APTN, the Aboriginal People's Television Network. That was my favorite actual channel. And so I totally understand this. That's what I got. That's why I've never done it. I would never approach a Native American and saying anything about shit. One of my problems with vegan activists, especially the militant ones, is going and putting down Native American communities, and the fact that some of them eat meat or they wear something with an animal when in my own opinion, personal opinion, they have a deeper reverence for the animal kingdom than we as vegans do. They understand that they're part and parcel of the same spirit. It's unbelievable that anybody who's vegan would have the egoistic and arrogant attitude that they should go to a native people who have thousands of years of deep connection with the animals and completely and totally address the fact that there's a sacredness and a reverence for these life forms, when I don't see a sacredness and a reverence for animals at all in our own communities. But to go to a community where that exists and then tell them you should this, you should do that, you shouldn't eat this, you should do that, you mustn't do this, after having stolen their land and on their own stolen land saying this. So I have not approached any Native Americans for this reason, because I totally get it and I totally understand it. And thank you so much, Vincent, for bringing this up, because more people need to hear this and they need to know. There is an amazing ignorance as to the harm that's been perpetuated. I didn't say done, because it's still being perpetuated into Indigenous communities here and throughout the rest of the world.
Yeah, speaking from my perspective, I'm Indian, and I came here as a graduate student. And, in India, until about 200 years ago, no one paid for food.
Yeah.
Food was not something that you transacted. It was something that you gave to people. You ate food. So no one really went hungry, because you just go to your neighbor who has food and eat it. So because the land was so fertile in India, right? So we could grow anything anywhere. And but that was when the British were trying to colonize India, and they were fighting a war with the French. So they had their own problems. Okay, they were trying to fight a war with the French, and they couldn't get Indians to build ships for them, because Indians are always belly full.
They did get our Indians.
Yeah, I mean, of course they came.
My ancestors were literally involved in the French-Indian War, and brothers were fighting against brothers. It was brutal.
Yeah,
I just know what you're talking about. I've had my little interactions with the French and British in my history.
I see. Okay. So what they figured out was, we have to make these Indians dependent on others for food. Okay, we need to make them buy food. So the way they did that was they started taxing Indian villages in one particular grain. Okay, they would say, you pay us, 70 bushels of rice or 70 bushels of wheat. And that forced people to grow monocultures. And when you grow monocultures, you become dependent on others for food.
And you destroy the earth and you destroy the soil.
Exactly. So then, they could get people to come and, cut down trees and build ships for them. That was their intent. I mean, they had their own issues, right? So I think that we are now coming together from around the world as a species and figuring out how to live that is in harmony with nature, and that we can leave as a legacy to our children. So this is, to me, this is the greatest transformation that's happening right now.
Interesting.
It's because every local culture went through this. Like India went through this when I think Indus Valley civilization was destroyed the rivers of India, right? The Indus was destroyed. And so then they moved into India and they said, okay, we need to figure out how to do this right. And they figured out how to do it right. Okay.
Interesting.
And so now the global culture is coming together and saying, wait a minute, we need to figure out how to do this right. And we need to learn from each other to understand how we put together a system that works for all of us. Ultimately, it has to work for all of us.
Wow.
We need to bring all of us back up,
And I think the way to do that is to go back to the ancient traditions.
Right. Yeah.
Because they had it. Right. It's really interesting because there's a tribe that was in Florida, the Seminole, and they used to grow sugarcane.
Right.
And the person that I get my raw sugarcane juice from here said to me that in Southern California, there was a tribe who also grew sugarcane for medicinal purposes. Now, what if Native Americans got back and started growing sugarcane again? Because this is actually the healer. People are addicted to sugars. Then let's transform that addiction and bring something that will actually heal the diabetes, help to prevent cancer, and do so many things. The fiber in this alone. When you juice the sugar cane, we can't juice it ourselves. You need a special machine. And so Native American communities could get together and buy machines, or we could help to do fundraisers and get, if they so desire, and put this together and have that. And I know that the person who I get mine from said that she will help and she will work. And this is something that she feels so strongly about, and she will even donate. So what if we did this and then we got Native Americans to take their power back away from the incredibly toxic and addictive sugar industry here in the United States, get them back to what their ancestors did.
We're getting there, and I'll explain.
Go ahead.
We're taking our power back by leaps and bounds, and unfortunately, we're not doing it with food yet, but we are doing it with every bit of our resolution or ability by using what was used against us and changing it to using it what is for us. For example, we were moved to different places in the desert, in unsustainable areas, in areas where many humans could not survive, but we survived. And then we took where we were put, and we were informed that we were sovereign entities, and we were told via treaty that we would be taken care of in terms of our health care and sustenance. And, these treaty promises were consistently broken. And then our culture was outlawed. We were at one point told that we couldn't even dance in a powwow. That was illegal. We were told all these things that we couldn't do and couldn't have and couldn't practice. Our children were taken from their homes, taken to boarding schools, actually factory schools, something I want to talk about in just a second, not native. But and then so we took where we were at. Okay, they legislated us out. They moved us out. They physically moved us out. So we are sovereign entities. What does that mean? We can make our own laws to some extent. Okay, so what we're going to do in something that falls within the confines of the laws that you gave us, what works? gaming works. Okay. You can't legislate us that. So then what do? We start gaming. And then what do the states do? The states say, well, then you got to pay state promised compacts, essentially the state's way of getting money from native casinos. So everything we do to create strength, we get legislated out against. So what do we give? Millions and millions of dollars to the states because they didn't want us to do gambling, but now they're mad because we are. And this is sustaining us. I'm watching the St. Regis Mohawk tribe, for example, use the gaming revenues to help our elders, help healthy foods. And so what's happening is even though the states and the government always is against us in terms of allowing us what to do, we will still find a way within these legislative efforts to empower ourselves. What's happening? Some tribes in legal areas are able to sell cannabis, and that is extremely lucrative. So what is happening to all these monies that are coming in? We're using it to putting it back into our communities and back in our communities with sustainable ways of energy, going off the grid, creating farms again. But the thing is we've been pushed so far out that we've had to come back around, and it took us a while to get our power back, but we are incredibly resilient. And this is what it means when they say the meek shall inherit the earth, because even though we got pushed out, we are taking back our power. But you put us in a place where we couldn't grow food, so don't expect us to suddenly grow food, but we are going to do what we can do where we were put with what we have. And that it just is the way it is. So then,
and resilient is the word. Resilient is definitely the word, Vincent. There's a film which I recommend to everyone called Gather that came out recently. And in this film, it shows ways in which Native Americans are taking back their food sovereignty. And I think, and it's a film which is very dear to my heart. I think most people should really watch that film before even thinking about what needs, how they can help or what they can do. Because I think you said something that was very important, that it's the Native American communities and all indigenous communities around the world. Look at the Maoris. Look what they have done. It's pretty incredible that New Zealand is now seeing that their culture is not just the predominant culture of New Zealand, but now the New Zealand culture. And and they were almost wiped off the face of the earth as well. So I really commend all the indigenous communities around the world. There's a gentleman who is in London right now. He took a year off from the Amazon. He lives in the Amazon. He took a year off to go to the UK and lives in London just to teach people there about the harm that is being done by these petrochemical industries and the greed to the Amazon. So he's living away from his natural inheritance that's how committed they are. I mean, people are really going out of their comfort zone to give us this information, to get us this information. The least we can do is listen and stop doing what we've been doing that's so harmful.
On that note, we have to end, but thank you so much for both of you for a very stimulating discussion. It's, I think, only through conversations like this that we are going to figure out what is the solution for all of us. And we are going to get there. As Brother Phil said, this is the day that shall not be followed by night. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.